Grid trading bots, the archetype of trading bots. While their underlying principle is pretty simple, it's not always easy to make them worth it. So today I want to take some time to give you all my best tips to help improve your profits. I will also share with you the results of a test to maximize profits that I've been running for a few weeks now. This video is going to be packed with information, so I suggest watching it in a calm and focused setup. The menu for this video. The starter will be a brief explanation on how grid trading bots work and how to set one up. I want to make sure we're all on the same page, but if you already know the basics of grid trading bots, don't hesitate to jump the timestamps. The main course will be my tips, 3 dishes, and the dessert will be the discussion of the results of the test and a bonus tip for the cherry. Enjoy. Let me open this diagram so I can explain simply how a grid trading bot works. So given an entry price, this will correspond to the value of the asset when the trading bot is started. The trading bot will place a grid of orders. This grid corresponds to evenly spaced levels where buy and sell orders are placed, waiting to be executed when the price of the asset goes past them. Typically, you have buy orders under the current price and sell orders above the current price. If we concentrate on the example displayed in the diagram, where this thin gray line represents the evolution of the price of the asset across time, you can see that the trading bot will execute the buy orders as the price goes down and crosses those grid levels, each time buying little portions of the asset, which it will then sell when the price goes back up. The little portion that was bought here will be sold at this point here, while what was bought here will be sold at this point here, etc., etc. And it doesn't stop at that point. The bot will carry on doing that as the price goes back in and out of those levels. You see that the background principle is relatively simple. It's to keep on doing little buy lows and sell highs. So what is fundamental to set your grid and what you will have to provide to the trading bot is the upper bound of your grid, its lower bound, and the grid spacing. Please remember that none of this is financial advice. Trading has risk. This is only me sharing my personal experiences. Anyway, now that we've covered the basics of grid trading bots, let's look at how to set one up. For that, I'll be using the KuCoin exchange because that's what I've worked with a lot, but many exchanges have them. And note that the tips I will give you are general, not just for KuCoin. Let's go to the trading bot page. I'm going to go on trade here and then click on trading bot. And we're going to go for the spot grid. So a grid trading bot that works on the spot market. We'll keep the futures grid trading bot for another video. So if you wanted to configure such a bot, the first thing you would have to choose is indeed the pair you're going to trade. And this is what the first step is going to be about. And then with KuCoin, you have 2 setups you can choose from, an automatic one and a custom one. The automatic one doesn't let you choose any of the specifics. It's just something that their algorithm suggests for you to use. And with this auto feature, you can see that there's a backtest that comes with it. So it gives you the performances of the specifics that it suggests to you. On the data of here, you see the 7 previous days. With that, just be aware that past performances never guarantee future results. I wouldn't be able to tell you whether these things work well or not because I've never really used them. My personal opinion is that you should know what you're doing. And with all these automatic setups, generally what happens is that you end up not doing your homework and just run the bot like this. And what I do think is that if you want to be successful with grid trading bots, doing your homework is very important. Okay, anyways, so we shall go to custom today. And you can see that then you have the second thing that you'll have to provide the bot, which is the bounds of the grid. So the lower bound and the higher bound. And my second tip is going to be about this choice. Lastly, what you'll have to provide is the grid spacing. Here in KuCoin, it corresponds to the number of orders per grid. So let's actually take an example so we see how things work out. Let me center a bit more this chart of Bitcoin/USDT. Let's say for the lowest value of the grid, I'll take kind of the lowest price of the previous resistance level. So here around 27,000. Let's say I'll put the same difference above 30,000, so 33,000. You see, it allows me to put up to 45 orders, so let me put 45. And as soon as I've written this, you can see that the grid here appears. And you see that also what appears is the average profit per grid, so the average profit made by the jumps in the grid, the little levels. And with this example, it is around 0.3%. And that's indeed what my last tip is going to be about. And that's also what I've been running my test on, because that parameter is important for profits. And you might find out that what is best for profits is not actually what you expect. There's a little subtlety that I would like to point out with this number, because it can be a bit confusing. Each time the bot is going to make a trade, you will not receive this percent profit of the total value that you've given to the bot. Because with this grid, what happens is that the bot spreads out all the value that you've given it across all these levels. So technically speaking, you will get each time there's a trade, this percentage of the total value locked in the bot divided by the number of orders. Roughly. To finish with the setup of the bot, what you would have to give then is the amount that you want to invest, so the amount that you want to lock in the bot if you want. There is a minimum amount that you'll have to give, and this number generally depends on the choices that you've made here. And then finally, there are some optional settings that you can input. For example, an entry price. So this is if you want to schedule in advance for a trading bot to start only when the price of your asset hits a certain value. Then you can give a stop loss price. So for the trading bot to exit and sell all the positions if the value of the asset drops below a given value. You will see that from my first tip, this is not something I would necessarily put in. And finally, you can put a take profit. So if you want the bot to stop when the value of the asset has hit a target price. I would say there's essentially two ways of using grid trading bots. A rapid, small time frames, few days setup. This to me is for more experienced users because it requires a strong knowledge of market dynamics, news and macro, and it will demand a high maintenance. The other way is slower for daytime frames and running over several weeks. This is more of a laid back and longer term approach. The latter approach is what I'm focusing on today, although my tips could be extended to the former. Anyway, here's my first tip for success with grid trading bots. Choose an asset that you're happy to hold long term. To understand why I'm insisting on this long term, let's think a bit in terms of reverse psychology. What is the worst that can happen with a grid trading bot? Well, just like any investments or trading, is that the value of the asset drops. At the level of the trading bot and the grid here in our example, what it means is two things. If the price goes below this lower bound, the bot will simply stop trading. But what it also means is that as the price goes down, you know that it will execute all its buy orders. So by the time the price goes below the last level, all the buys would have been executed, meaning that all the value that is in the trading bot is in the form of the base currency. So here in our example is BTC, while USDT is what we call the quote currency. So essentially at this point, you're left with three options. The first one is to stop your losses. For example, setting the stop loss at the lower bound of your grid, and the trading bot would sell all the BTC that it has for USDT. So here your loss would have been realized because you sold everything at the end. The loss to compute it is a bit complicated because it's not like you bought all the BTC at the entry price. You know that the trading bot buys little portions as it goes down through the levels. Plus, along the way, it would have still accumulated little profits from the grid trades. Option 2 is actually not to do anything because, for example, you think it's just a momentary drop and therefore the price will at some point go back above this lower bound. So you let the bot run so it can start again trading when this happens. Option number 3 is to stop the bot, but this time not sell anything. That is to say, keep hold of the BTC that you've accumulated. You must start seeing what I'm getting at here, is that if this is a coin you believe in and you're happy to hold long term, then you won't be too troubled by the fact that you have to hold on this coin until a better future. Plus, you would have been happy to see that thanks to those little grid trades, you would have accumulated a bit more coin. Now, of course, there's always the possibility that the price of the asset never goes back up, but one cannot blame the bot for that. Sometimes investments don't work out the way we thought they would, and that's an inherent risk with all investments. Moving on, the choice of the asset should also be made according to its price action. So here's my second tip. Ranging is key. To illustrate this tip, I'm using the Link USDT pair because that's really the kind of textbook market you want. And this is also what I've been running my test on. You can clearly see how the price after falling, beginning of 2022, late 2019, when all the tokens really went down, it really reached a strong support level and it started ranging between this support here and this resistance above. And this has been going on for several months. That's really what you want to identify, a ranging regime between two strong levels, a support level and a resistance level. And if the price has a tendency to be going up more than down, That's even better. If you want to know more about how to spot resistance and support areas, you can check a video I made. Let me now point out why I'm advocating more this patient, long-term approach with grid trading and daily charts. And that's because to spot strong levels, you need a history in the price. You need these levels to have been tested several times with a lot of volume, etc. And this becomes much harder to do when you go to smaller time frames. By the way, you might have guessed indeed that these blue levels that I drew here are the limits of the grids that I gave to the trading bots I'm running the test with. And you should observe that I didn't exactly glue the levels to the peaks nor the troughs. I gave them a bit more room just in case. Let me conclude on this tip by insisting that long-term daily charts, etc., means patience. There is no such thing on this planet that constantly doubles your profits every month. So even with these fast trading bots, one has to be reasonable and patient with their goals. Sorry if I'm breaking your hearts a bit here, but it is what it is. Anyway, let's move on to the third tip. I think I could summarize it by tiny grid spacing loads of trades doesn't necessarily mean most profitable. Let's go to the classic version. It'll be easier for me to show you the bots that I've been running from there. Let me point out here that you can also launch some bots from here. You'll get the same entries to put in, but you just don't get the graph next to it here. Okay, let me close and then we go to running. These first three bots are actually infinity grid bots. This is a test that I started in my previous video. This type of bot also uses a kind of grid, but it is more suited for assets that are pumping rather than ranging. I'll let you check that video out if you want more details. For the topic of today, I've run 5 bots and here they are. You can see that they're all using the link USDT pair and all of them have the price range that I highlighted before on TradingView, so the 5.2 to 9.7. I did start these bots one after the other, so that's why they have slightly a different entry price each time, just because the price changed a tiny bit by the time I created a new one and then a new one, etc. So really the only main difference between all these bots is the number of orders per grid. You can see that this one is 100, so let me go to parameters, 100, this one 75. So I changed by increments of 25. This one is 50. That one 25. And then I went another little step further to this one that's 10. As you might have seen by clicking here, you can open the order book. So you have all the order history and also the current proportions of your orders in your trading bot. And there is some important information in here that I want to point out. You can see for this bot that I've configured to have 100 open orders in its grid. 62 are in the form of a buy and 38 are in the form of a sell. And the reason for that is because of the current price. Today it's around 8, which is much closer to the upper bound that I gave it of 9.7. Than the lower bound of 5.2. So technically speaking, as the price has been growing, the bot has been executing more of its sell orders, replacing them with new buy orders. By the way, this also means that at the moment, 62% of the value in the trading bot is in the form of USDT, while the rest is in the form of Link. But of course, these numbers and these orders change as the price evolves and the bot trades and constantly updates its buy and sell orders. Okay, back to our bots. Let me say that I'm very happy about the results that I'm getting here. They've been running for a bit more than a month and all of them are giving me 12 or 12%. Honestly, I wish my savings bank account would give me something like that. Anyway, what I think is important is to understand how those profits came about. So let's analyze that before we look into the details of the differences between each bot. If you look at the bot here, you can see that there's the total profits here, and here are the data that we want to look in detail. The grid APR here and the APR. So what this is telling us is that in total, the APR is of around 140. But in that, almost 40% was made thanks to these grid trading, and the rest, therefore, is from the growth of the asset. Because of this, there's some important psychology I want to tell you about. So let's go to TradingView so I can explain myself better. This cross here marks when I've started the trading bot. So you can see that I've started it a bit below the mid-range of my grid. And indeed, you can see that on average, the asset has grown and the grid profits have been made thanks to this volatility here. But it's true that a large part of the profits was realized thanks to the growth of the asset. But what would have happened if I started the grid at this point here? Well, here you can see that the first few weeks would have seen a decrease in the price of the asset, which most likely means that here your profits would have been in red. But does this really mean that your trading bot is not profitable? Well, as the price went down, maybe you would feel an urge to quickly stop the bot. But this would have probably probably been a mistake, right? Because after that, what happens was this increase. So little by little, as the token increased its value, you would have started having profits turning green, and at the same time, the grid still carry on to capitalize on the little volatility. Whether the price goes down or up, what the trading bot is really doing is cashing on this little volatility here. That's why it's extra important to do the background homework properly. Find an asset that you like, identify the ranging regime, be confident about those choices that you make, and just let the bot run and be patient. Okay, it's time to dissect a bit the differences between all these bots and end up choosing what we should leave to carry on doing its thing. So as my tips suggested, you might have realized that indeed the one with the most orders, this one, 100 orders, is actually the one that did the least profits. The grid APR is below 30%, all the others are above 30%. So a tiny grid with a lot of orders doesn't necessarily mean profits. And there's two reasons for that. Like this is capturing only tiny variations one after the other, rather than letting the pump grow and capitalize on it after it has reached a decent size. And the second reason for that is because the grid spacing is so tiny. It has done a lot of trades, 534 for a bit more than 33 days. So what, somewhere around 50 trades per day, which means that each time there's a trade, there are trading fees that you're paying. So little by little, your profits are also eaten down by those trading fees. Of course, we can't avoid trading fees, but there is a better balance that can be found between how often you trade and how much each trade realizes in P&L. Here we have the other extreme where I only gave it 10 orders in the grid, and you can see that that's the second to worst grid APR. And basically here, what's happening is that it's doing too few trades and the grid spacing is too large, so it's not able to capture on the volatility properly. So you're probably starting to realize with such high frequency trading bots, trading fees are also a key factor. So it is very important that you keep them as low as possible. With KuCoin, I have two suggestions to help you do that. The first is to come here in your profile and is to buy some KCS, the KuCoin token, and then activate here pay with KCS. This will reduce your trading fees. And the second suggestion is to open an account on KuCoin using a registration link that gives you some discounts on your trading fees. The one that we provide down below in the description will give you an extra 10% discount. And by doing so, you will support the channel a lot. Note that you're allowed to create up to 3 accounts on KuCoin actually with the same KYC. You might just need different email addresses. To conclude on this test, let me close the bots that did the least well, use that money to top up the best one, and I will reconfigure it a bit. This way I'll also show you both what happens when you close a trading bot and when you update one. Let's close the 3 worst ones first. So let me start by this one. And you can see that you have 3 choices that come up. The first is to close the bot and keep the tokens as they are in the trading bot. So therefore following the proportions that we discussed before. The next one is basically if you want to cash in, so everything will be converted to USDT. In other words, the proportion of link will be converted to USDT. And the last one is the opposite. If you want, everything will be converted to link. This choice really is up to you. It depends on the context. Yeah, for me, I want to cash in, so I will select this option and use this money to top up the bot that I will leave to run for good. Let me point out an extra thing before I click on confirm. Imagine this wasn't the happy scenario, but rather this sort of worst case scenario we discussed before. That is that the value of the asset dropped below the lower limit. That would have implied that what's locked in the trading bot is all in the form of link. And in that case, I would certainly not go for this option here because my plan would be to just hodl on the link and wait until a better future. So therefore, I would either go for this one or this one, which technically speaking will be exactly equivalent because if the value goes below the lower bound, then all the value in the trading bot will be in the form of link. In other words, this option here would make me realize my loss, while this option here would allow me to just hodl my coin. But of course, this is a personal preference. You might want at this point to stop your losses, and therefore you would probably convert everything to USDT. That's up to you. Anyway, so let's confirm, and you can see now it's stopping. Let me quickly stop the other 2. All right, what are we going to do with these 2 now? I only want to keep one bot running for good. You can see that the profits have been very similar and the grid APR as well, but this one is the one that has the highest grid APR. So probably the best balance in the parameters is somewhere in between those 2 bots. Let's look at the grid percentage. This will help us. So this one with 25 orders has an average profit per grid between 1.7 and 3.3, while the other one that is with 50 orders, has an average profit per grid in between 0.8, 1.56. So I think we should aim for something in between, something between 1 and 2%. So let me reconfigure this one with this. So I come here, click here. I want to keep the exact same price range, 5.2, 9.7. Now we need to fix the number of orders. The middle in between 25 and 50 should be 37.5. We can see that 37 is 1.10 to 2.17. So let's do a bit more to reach our target. There we go. 40 is in between 1 and 2%. So this is my bonus tip for you. If you have no specific intel on the coin or on the market, my personal go-to values is this 1 to 2%. This is what I've found to work best in general. Anyway, let me confirm and confirm again. And there we go. And now I can close this last part, convert to USDT, and use all this money to top this one up. So I'll top it up by 160 and confirm. And there we go. So I'm just going to leave it patiently, let it do its thing, and I'll report to you in the future about performances. We made it, and I hope this was valuable to you, and I wish you all the best success with your grid trading bots. Like if you've enjoyed, comments, questions below or in our community Discord. And if you want to support me in creating more content like this, you can buy me a coffee over there. This was Robot Traders for you. Take care and see you soon.